With hipover50.com. How are you today? Isn't that an American thing to say, huh? Today I'm going to talk to you about, is the grass greener in England? And these are just my observations. So I've been living in England pretty much full time now for a few years. I got here before the pandemic. And I have gone through those different stages that you go through when you start anything new. First, you just sort of look around and you take it all in. And then you start saying, well, I like that, but I don't like that. And my observations are mine and mine alone, obviously. But in case you're wondering if it's time for you to make a big move, if you're thinking about moving to England or even to Europe from the US, this may be helpful for you because it's always an unknown, isn't it? We don't know if that new place that we think is going to be perfect will be right for us because we all have our own opinions about things. We all come from a different place. We've all been born in different places. We've all been brought up with different cultures. So, how do you know if this culture will fit with you? Well, perhaps my experience can help you a little bit. So, some of the things that I think aren't greener over here in England are the inefficiency of how things are run. And I'm afraid to say I don't think Brexit and COVID helped that along at all. I remember coming over here, for vacations over the years and thinking, gosh, I could never live there. It's so inefficient. And it is still true, in my opinion. And compared to the US style of getting things done on time, there's always sort of a bit of a clock ticking in the US to get something done, to get something accomplished. Typically, if somebody says they're going to do something, they do it. Here, it's not so much. I mean, people close their stores when they feel like it. They'll put I'll be back in 5 minutes and, to go for a coffee. Plumbing is just sort of like, don't even get me started on the plumbing here. There's a lot of things that were just sort of baked in to life here that have never really been upgraded or changed, and systems. Let's not forget the government. I mean, a lot of things are inefficient about how the government is run, but I suppose that's true of anywhere. I just think on the whole, the lifestyle here is supports people sort of being a little more relaxed about how things get done, and that results in being inefficient. Now, not across the board, obviously, not everybody, but that is my general first impressions. What are some of the other things that aren't so green about living in England? Well, it is that people can be a little fussy. They can be a little persnickety. And that really came out during the pandemic because people were all on edge. They were all like, what the heck is going on here? I mean, I remember sitting on a bus during the pandemic when some of the restrictions were still in place, and they would actually X out every other seat. So, they would have some sort of, distance between people. I mean, you could still sit behind somebody, but you were just diagonally from them. So it really didn't make a lot of sense, but whatever. So I was sitting there, and I must have been sitting on an X'd out part, but there was nobody sitting next to me. And then this couple came in and sat in front of me, and he turned around and looked at me like, aren't you going to move? And I was like, excuse me, I was here first. But, that's kind of the thing. They get very tied up in their rules here, and there's lots and lots of rules, and that goes for traffic as well, for driving. So sometimes I think they get a little too carried away with the rules here, but whatever. That is part of life here. So that is one of the non-grasses greener aspects to it. Another thing is, and if you've lived in the US, you get used to having all kinds of amazing resources. I mean, you can pretty much get anything you want, get anything done, because it's such a big country and it has such a huge economy. But here, for example, if you want health food or health supplements, there's one chain that I'm aware of called Holland and Barrett, and it's just a little dinky store. I mean, they're everywhere, but they don't really carry a wide variety compared to, let's say, Trader Joe's or Sprouts or Vitamin Cottage or Whole Foods, which are massive stores and carry a wide range of groceries. So you could shop in there and get everything in one fell swoop. Here, that isn't available, but that is a small price to pay. I mean, there's a lot of unique little shops, but there isn't the wide variety, whether it's clothing, health foods. There's a lot of things that you may not be able to get here. The other downside, a little bit of a downside, is in the winter, the days are super short because we live very far in the northern hemisphere here compared to most of the US or even parts of Canada. It gets dark here. I mean, the sun sets around 4:30 right now, and this is November. So It gets dark by 5 o'clock. Now, granted, it does stay light during the summer. It will stay light to almost 10 o'clock at night. But I personally would prefer to have a little more light during the winter hours because it can be cloudy, it can be rainy, and then it gets dark early. So, anyway, those are some of the non grass is greener aspects of living here. What are some of the grass is greener aspects? Well, for one thing, the grass is actually greener. You will see green grass all year round here. I mean, I remember living in Colorado in the middle of the winter, everything was brown because, you'd have a hard freeze and it would just kill everything off. Here, the temperature is mild. I mean, you don't get those extreme cold spells or extreme hot spells, although they will complain about them here. But to me, it's just not that extreme. Mostly, it's sort of like a Mediterranean moderate climate. So the grass stays green all year round, and the trees and the flowers are just amazing. They're just beautiful. So it always feels kind of lush all year round, and that's kind of nice. What are some of the other grass is greener things? Well, I love nature here. I love the fact that there is a right to roam law. You can pretty much walk wherever you want. I mean, they have opened up the country. Obviously, there's some private places you can't go, but for the most part, the coastline is open to you, the beaches are open to you, fields are open to you. You can walk wherever you want because that's kind of a thing here to go walking or rambling. And I love that. I don't think it's the same in the US because a lot of the coastline there is privately owned and you can't even get close to it, or you can't get close to walk on the beach unless you pay for a parking space. And I'm not saying you don't have to pay for parking here, but there's a lot more accessibility to the outdoors, which I love. What else? Oh, the culture. Hello. The Romans came over here and said, wow, this place is pretty cool. Let's start building stuff. And then they kind of lost interest and they left. But the culture never stopped. I mean, all kinds of innovations occurred here, and it's never stopped. The history, the architecture, gardening, you name it. It's just phenomenal here. I mean, there's just so much to see and so much to do. You'd never run out of things to do. And if you're into history or culture at all, theater, books, filming is going on here. I mean, it's fabulous. So if you're a culture file or a history file, you'll just love it here. That is definitely a grass is greener aspect. I also think the quality of life is better here because it's a little more balanced. I was talking earlier about inefficiency. Well, that's the side effect of the fact that people don't live to work here like they do in the US. They have and they expect to get a lot more time off to spend either on vacation with their families, doing what they want to do. I have a friend who was able to take a year's leave of absence to take care of her elderly parents and then just go back to work. Can you imagine that happening in the US on a regular job? People just expect to get time off here. And so it does lead to a better quality of life, a little more relaxed quality of life. You're not kind of killing yourself because you will have job security. I mean, even pregnant women over here can get up to a year's paid maternity leave. And it's a law to get 52 weeks of maternity leave. So that's pretty amazing because I know in the US there is no law. It's up to the individual employer. So people are better taken care of here. There's a better support system here. NHS, hello, healthcare. So the quality of life, I think, is definitely a grass is greener aspect to living here. And I love the villages. I mean, we don't really have villages in the US. There's not that sort of sense of being in a small community where you have the village pub, the village post office, the village shop, the village hall, where everybody kind of knows each other and you have, kind of a great little lifestyle. I mean, it's sort of, it's a little microcosm right there, dotted around all over the country. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of villages, and they're all unique in their own personality. But it means that you are not kind of stuck out in a suburb somewhere where you may not ever meet anybody or know anybody. So that is a great aspect and a great grass is greener sign of living here. Also, the fact that you don't need to have a car. You can get by with public transportation. All those little villages usually have some kind of a bus service, so you can get to the nearest town or city if you want for other services like hospital or shopping or whatever. So it's kind of even though everything kind of grew up higgledy-piggledy here, it's all designed to make life worth living and to have a good quality of life. And I think that, for me, makes England the grass is greener for me here. So I think it makes it a beautiful place to live, and maybe it will be for you too. Think about what I said, and if you have any questions or comments, suggestions, put them in the suggestions box below, and I will talk with you soon. Bye for now.